Working out a rounding word problem. Today I have a sample problem for you, and I want to go through the steps with you on how to solve this problem. So my problem says, opening day at the New York State Fair in 2012 had an attendance of 46,753. Decide what place value to round to if you were writing a newspaper article. Round the number and explain why it is an appropriate unit to round the attendance to. So, in our steps for solving problems, one of the things that we have to do first, of course, is read the problem. We have to read it in order to understand what we're being asked to do. We cannot look at the number and decide, oh, I'm just going to round it. We have to read to understand what's going on. So, when the question asks me, what are you being asked to do? I'm looking for what the task or question is. I'm not deciding whether I'm multiplying or anything of that. I'm not deciding which operations. I'm just simply restating the question. What is the question here? Or the task? The task says to round the number and explain why it's an appropriate unit to round the attendance to. That's what I'm being asked to do. To round the number. What number? This number they give me, 46,753, and explain. So I have two things that I have to do. So when I write on this line, I am simply writing what the question is, or what the question asked me, or what the task asked. So I'm going to change this. So I've already underlined what I was asked to do. Round the number, explain why it's appropriate to round. Those are two things. So I put round and explain. That's what I want to make sure that I'm focusing on when I go to solve the problem. Number two is analyze. What do I know about this? I am getting information from the word problem and also from what I've learned in class about rounding, because rounding is what I have to do. So I know that the problem tells me that there's an attendance of 46,753 people. So I wrote that down, 46,753 in attendance. Okay? Now, I have to dig. I'm being asked to round, so I need to know something about rounding. And as you know, we've been learning about rounding. Well, one thing I know is that when I round a number, it has zeros at the end. You could pick any fact that will help you know or help you solve this about rounding. You could say, I know that there is a beginning number and an ending number. I know that I need to use a number line. You could use anything that you know about rounding that you've been taught. So it doesn't have to be this statement, but something about rounding. That's what we're looking for when we say analyze. Sometimes all three parts of analyzing is here in the word problem. I could also write, I have to decide what place value to round to. And that's new because a lot of times you're told, but this time we're deciding. So I could have written that down. It's all a matter of what you think you need to solve the problem. Number three, I wrote down that in this number there are 4 10,000s and there are 46 thousands. So you could say there's 6,000s too, but when I rename it, I could say there's 46 thousands. Now, I know in order to strategize, I have to draw some pictures. Pictures can include place value charts, number lines, or actual pictures of something. And so one thing I didn't do was make my place value chart over the number, so I'm going to take a moment and do that right now. So I've made the number and I've put the place value chart there. That tells me that I have 46,753. It tells me, and now I can clearly see that I really do have 46 thousands when I rename it. Okay? So 46,753, because it has 46, I've decided to round to the nearest thousands place. Why? Because it's talking about people in attendance, and I want a close number. I could round to the nearest 10,000s. That would give me a number, but I want a closer number, so I'm going to round to something smaller. Okay? So 46,000 would be what I'm rounding to. Notice my zeros here. Because it already has 46 thousands, that's what I start with. That's something else I could have written under analyze. Or I could it could round to 1,000 more, which is 47,000. So 47,000 it could round to. I know that in between the 0 and 1,000 is 500. So I know I have 46,500 in the middle. And now I can star where this number would go on the number line, which is right here. I know that 46,753 rounds to 47,000. Okay? So now I've written that as my answer. 46,753 is approximately 47,000. Why did I write that? Because remember, I had to round and explain. I picked 47,000. It's a closer estimate for people than 50,000. That's why I chose it. If you would have chosen to do 50,000, then you could have said why you chose 50,000. Maybe you wanted a nice, even round number or a friendlier number for people to look at in a newspaper article, and that would be valid too. Remember, they're asking you to decide in this question. So, does my answer match and make sense? When this question is asked, you are looking for what you were being asked. I was asked to round and explain. Did I round? Yes. Does it make sense that 46,753 would round to 47,000? Yes, because I rounded to the nearest 1,000. Did I explain? Yes, I told why I chose to round to 47,000 rather than 50,000. So yes, my answer matches what I was being asked to do, and it makes sense. And there you have it. I've modeled how to use the steps in a rounding problem.